Hey, what's up guys? Welcome back to another episode of What's That Whiskey here on Drums and Drams. My name's Cameron, and today I've got 2 blind samples sent in by a great friend of the channel, Brett T. So thank you, Brett, for sending these my way. Now, if you're unfamiliar with this series, basically what I'm gonna be doing in today's video is nosing, tasting, and giving you a full review of both of these whiskeys. I'm not gonna have any idea what they are, but you are. So I'm going to put along the bottom of the screen around either the first nosing or maybe the first sip of each of these whiskeys, what exactly is in that glass. So you're gonna find out, keep your eyes peeled again along the bottom of the screen, but I'm not gonna find out until the end of the video when I reveal that for myself out of these 2, kind of folded up pieces of paper that Brett sent with these samples. So I'm gonna make my guess sort of at the end of the video for each of these glasses. I'm gonna guess type of whiskey, age, proof, distillery, whether or not I think it's finished, and a bottle guess if I can think of one. Kind of a fun game for me, a great way for you to get my honest takes on whiskeys when I have no idea what they are. And I'm actually gonna add a little twist to the end of this particular episode of What's That Whiskey, and hopefully I'm gonna do this moving forward as long as I remember in future episodes, which is that I'm gonna score these whiskeys out of 100, which is something I'm doing on all of my unblind reviews on the channel. But I wanna do this for my blind reviews as well and see how these numbers start to stack up, and if things change throughout the year as I get maybe a little bit better at scoring. All my Patreon members have access to all of my scores in a spreadsheet, so that's one of the perks of signing up for the Patreon. But I think that's enough talking. It's time to get into these 2 whiskeys. I'm probably gonna nose them both first and then go to the palate for each of them. Let's go to the nose for Glass A now. All right, guys, so Glass A immediately smells like a double oaked or toasted product. There's a ton of like really sharp, but sort of like buttery oak to it. Like it has this little hint of like a buttered popcorn note, which I get on some toasted barrel products, but this also has a darker component to like maybe a little bit of a spicy chocolate or spicy molasses or kind of like a coffee note. So that is sort of like toasted and also double oaked, those qualities that I'm talking about. It makes me lean kind of towards both of those things. But right away, I feel like there's extra oak influence here. Feels like a high proof. Doesn't really feel particularly old. Like this could be 6 to 8 years old, and that would be kind of commonplace for a product that I would assume is either toasted or double oaked like this. And finally, I have to start thinking about source on this whiskey, and I know I'm making a lot of guesses up front, but this is like obvious on the nose to me. At least I hope that's the case, or else I'm gonna look like an idiot at the end of this. But I need to drill down on the source of this whiskey. I will say before I go back to the nose, this is not my preferred profile. This kind of heavy, seemingly extra oak that I'm getting on here, like that is not a profile or those are not notes that I typically gravitate towards. And it's because it feels just a little bit forced. Some people really like this because it amplifies flavor, amplifies spice, and sometimes sweetness as well. For me, I think it amplifies youth by adding this extra oak component. And it again, feels just a little bit forced. But let's go back to the nose one more time before we move on to Glass B. Okay, so the last thing I'm gonna say here on the nose before I move on to Glass B is that this really feels like a high rye bourbon underneath what I imagine is a double oak or toasted profile. It feels like there's a lot of spice coming from the base whiskey. So that to me feels like a high rye bourbon. And there's also kind of like this dark fruit element at play as well, which makes me think one of 2 things. Maybe this is actually a higher aged base whiskey underneath a finishing barrel, or maybe this is like an MGP 36 rye, because those can have some dark fruit notes that would match the high rye, kind of feel that I'm getting on the nose. And if it's like a 7 or 8 year 36 rye MGP that you've double oaked, like all those things would line up. Now the proof does feel pretty intense, feels like 123-ish proof, let's say. And so those are just like initial guesses on the nose. Again, not my preferred profile. There's nothing wrong with this necessarily. Like it smells fine given the context of what I imagine it is. But let's go on to Glass B now and kind of figure out what the differences are here and see if one of these is maybe more preferable than the other one. So here we go, Glass B on the nose. Yeah, so Glass B could not be more different than Glass A. This is a much more reserved profile. It's super soft on the nose. It has kind of a crafty component to it, but it's not enough of a crafty component to make me, like, to put me off. Like this smells really sweet. It does have a little bit of that like craft grain or maybe pot still kind of note to it, but the sweetness and the softness on the nose, especially with like this vanilla note that I really like, it's very inviting. So I think this has a great nose. I have no idea what this could be, and so it's not as clear cut, let's say, as Glass A. I mean, this is one that I'm gonna really have to sit with here in this video. So I'm gonna go back to the nose right away and see if I can figure out anything else about this. But by and large, I think I actually really like this, even though it's totally off the beaten path. Let's kind of dig a little deeper on this. One thing that I'm picking up on, along with that softness, is kind of like this interesting grain note. And at first I thought crafty, and yes, it still could be crafty, but part of me thinks this is a wheat note in the mash bill. So I feel like this could be a wheated bourbon. That's kind of what I'm picking up on the nose. The proof does not feel high. I mean, this feels like maybe 100 proof. It could even be under 100 proof. My mind goes to like a 1792 sweet wheat, maybe some craft product that almost emulates a legacy Kentucky wheated bourbon to some degree. Like I'm again, a little bit all over the place, but I think it's lower proof. I think it smells older than it is because there's this funky, like old school thing to it, along with those crafty kind of notes. I think it's smelling more like a 10, 12-year product, and I don't think it's that old at all. I think it's sort of a deceptive thing on the nose, but I really like the profile of this. And listen, between these two things, both of them are a little bit out there. Like A, again, is definitely not my profile. B is also not, but maybe more up my alley. So I actually prefer B on the nose, weirdly enough, just because voice crack, puberty hit hard. Just because A is so intense, it's so oaky, and I feel like you can get a whiskey like that all the time. It's a dime a dozen for that kind of profile, and B does not feel like a dime a dozen kind of profile. Now the sequencing here is gonna be weird, so I'm actually gonna drink Glass B first because it feels much lower proof on the nose. I think that's the smart way to do this. So let's go Glass B first on the palate. Here we go, cheers. Wow, okay, so I really like this whiskey on the palate. It's kind of like there and gone. It's just a flash of flavor, no real finish to speak of. Definitely drinking like a weeder right now. I have no idea what this could be, but I really enjoy this for what it is. It's kind of like a session whiskey. It's something you could sit down and just crush a whole bunch of, which could be problematic because for some reason I'm starting to feel like this could be a very high-end product. I'm between it being a weird imitative crafty thing that feels legacy and again wheated, or it being like a high-end wheated bourbon that is actually priced really high. But at the end of the day, it feels like a session kind of whiskey that you can just sit and crush. You don't really need to think about it too much. I'm gonna go back in for a second sip now, and I'm gonna lock some guesses in for this. But this is tricky. It's very deceptive. I think it's very delicious as well. And I'm excited to find out what is in my glass right now. So here we go, one more sip. All right, so let's lock some guesses in now for Glass B. I'm gonna kind of switch things up here a little bit. I do still think there's wheat in the mash bill, but after that last sip, I'm starting to believe that there's also a high malted barley content. And I'm also picking up in the finish now something a little bit herbal and weird that kind of reminds me of an American single malt. So this is gonna be a really weird guess because in my mind, this drinks kind of like a Dusty, and I love it, like a low proof Stitzelweller Dusty. And it has that wheated component to it as well. But part of it, again, drinks like a more modern, crafty, imitative product, and the proof is throwing me off. But what I'm gonna guess is that this is an American malt whiskey with wheat in the mash bill. This is a really weird guess. I'm gonna say it's 100 proof. I'm gonna say it's 8 years old. I don't think it's finished. And I have absolutely no idea like where this comes from. So I'm gonna return to those guesses at the end, when we do the reveal. But right now I'm so confused about Glass B. I can't wait to find out what it is. But let's go back to Glass A now. Again, probably the higher proof whiskey on the palate. Let's go in for a first sip of this one. Here we go. Wow, so Glass A is extremely spicy on the palate. And you would definitely expect that based on what I was picking up on the nose, but man, it really hits up front with a ton of spice. But what's interesting about it is that as it starts to develop, the kind of like floor of the whiskey, the base of the whiskey falls out from under it, and it just maintains all of that spice into the finish. So it is a really long finish, but the kind of like the body of the whiskey goes away very, very quickly. Again, this is not my preferred profile, but I do kind of like this because this whiskey, as it gets into the mid palate, it becomes very focused. It's not particularly complex. It feels like it spent quite a bit of time in that finishing barrel. Does feel like a bourbon to me. I don't think it's toasted. I think this is purely double oaked. I think it was double oaked in a high char barrel. This feels like char 4 double oaking. It feels like an extended period of time in that second barrel as well. Proof I'm gonna say is 121. I'm gonna say age on this is 7 years old. 121, 7 years, double oaked, I do believe. Source, we're gonna say MGP, bourbon, bottle guess. Let's just call this like a Nulu pick, like a Nulu double oaked. I don't think that's what it is, but it kind of has those same characteristics. So I think all my guesses are in now. I don't know how the graphics on the screen are gonna go with both of these, but let's do the reveals. So let's reveal, because I guessed first, let's do glass B. Again, on this, I believe I said 8 years, some sort of American malt whiskey with wheat in the mash bill, no finish, 100 proof. I don't know if I had a bottle guess for this. I think Mackenzie Distillery maybe makes something like a malted wheat. I don't know. Let's just say it's from them. I don't know what it would be. Here we go. Wow. Okay. So this is funny. This is really funny. It's Woodford Reserve. This makes so much sense now. Woodford Reserve 2018 Masters Collection Oat Grain Bourbon. So you have this weird grain. You also have Woodford utilizing pot stills. You also just have the fact that it's Woodford with a little extra craftiness. 90.4 proof, so I'm even higher on the proof than I should have been. And that, I was fighting myself. I was thinking it's in the 90s. I went 100 because I thought it could have maybe been a bottled and bond product from like a craft distillery. That's what was in my head. And with the profile and with the drinking experience, but so it's oats that are doing this. It's oats, not necessarily wheat and a high barley content, but oats. Listen, I don't hate this. Like I do think it's a little bit out there, but it drinks like a wheater, and I kind of liked it. So, of course, I forgot to give this a rating. So I guess what I would rate this right now, I'd probably give this like a 78 out of 100. And again, now we're unblind. That rating might have been a little bit higher otherwise. I'm gonna give it a 78 out of 100 because it really imitated a lot of great things, but it lacked punch, it lacked concentration. It was clearly low proof and drinking really easy, but I would have given it benefit of the doubt. I don't think it makes it into the 80s ever, but in the 70s, I think that makes sense. So that's where we're gonna stick with this, but I do have a chance now to redeem myself and actually rate this next one. Before I do the reveal here, let's go with a 75 out of 100 on glass A. So we're gonna go 75 out of 100. Again, my guess is 36 rye MGP, possibly a Nulu pick, double oaked. I don't even know what I said for proof, 120 something. It'll be on the screen. Let's go now, do the reveal. Wow. Oh, this is wild. So Found North, single barrel, picked by Wine Depot, 116.8. So I think I said 100 and, what did I say? 121 or 118? I can't even remember what I said. I should write these down. It's Canadian whiskey though. It's finished in New American Oak, heavy toast, char 2. Okay, so lower char than I thought. 71 corn, 29% wheat. I would have never seen that, but you know what? The wheat does make sense now because this whiskey fell off pretty quickly. Like I said, as it got into the finish, it just felt like it disappeared. There was nothing sustaining it except for that extra barrel influence. But I will take it, right? It's finished in New American Oak. It is double oaked. I'm fairly close on the proof. The fact that I said bourbon, it's definitely not a bourbon, but I do feel okay about this guess. I got kind of like the broad strokes of this whiskey. The Woodford, I feel like I got the broad strokes of that too, but that's just a really weird bottle. I would have never guessed that. And the proof definitely could have been a little bit closer. So there you go, guys. A couple of whiskeys kind of in the high 70s. And it just, these are tough. Like they're both not totally my profile, even though B did a little bit more for me, weirdly enough, with the oats and the mash bill. But let me know what you think. Like, comment, subscribe. Thank you, Brett, for these samples. Cheers. I'm gonna wrap up with a final sip here of this Woodford Oat Grain Bourbon at 90.4 proof. Cheers, and I'll see you soon here on Drums and Drams.